The King's Avatar, Chapter 1161 River's End. Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1161 River's End. Translator, Gnome Yummy. Editor, Gnome Yummy. The water in Broken River rushed rapidly. If a character stopped moving in the middle of the water, they would certainly be swept away. Zhou Guangyi's Cold Seasons was forced into the water by Lord Grim. His first priority at this moment was figuring out how to escape Yishu and Feng Rui. Fighting against the water's flow could come later. Once they entered the water, Lord Grim and Boundless Sea hadn't stopped attacking, and the two characters had taken control of all the advantageous positions. What were the advantageous positions? In the midst of the rushing water, upstream positions were advantageous. Attacks that followed the flow wouldn't be as imped by the water, and these attacks would in fact travel faster than normal. With how swiftly the broken river flowed, the effect of the additional speed was quite significant. At first, Zhou Guangyi was worried about these two forcing him to the end of the river and out of the map, but a few moments later he realized he was overthinking. If the current situation continued, he would be a dead body long before he reached the river's end. Knowing that he was in a difficult situation, Zhou Guangyi finally sought help. Not long afterwards, he heard the splash of someone entering the water. His heart sped up, and he thought, this must be the backup arriving to help. And this splash had come from upstream, meaning that this person had seized a position advantageous to those of both Lord Grim and Boundless Sea. He could use the flow of the water as a buff to increase speed. As expected of an experienced veteran like Zhang Wei, when he arrived at the riverside, he didn't enter the water immediately. He had followed alongside it for a while, carefully studying until he confirmed everyone's position. Only then did he choose the most favorable position to enter the water. Once he came down, Zhang Wei's Witch Endless Forest began attacking. With a broom tornado he twisted downstream, arriving right in front of the two and battering them. Yishu and Feng Rui would have wanted to dodge to the side and let him sweep past, but if they dodged, they would be letting Cold Seasons go free. But would Yishu and Feng Rui be beaten up that easily? Yishu's Lord Grim flashed to the side, making way for Endless Forest, but then he swept his sleeve, sending a night cloak toward Endless Forest and Cold Seasons. Zhang Wei himself was a bitch. If he were taken down by his own class's skill, that would just be too embarrassing. He watched the attack coming, and Endless Forest waved his broom in a knocking motion. In the air, a witch could use their broom to jump 6 times. Now in the water, broom mastery also helped movement. With this knock, Endless Forest suddenly sank toward the bottom of the river, and the night cloak swept through empty water. Zhou Guangyi's Cold Seasons now had more space than Endless Forest. Borrowing the flow of the water to help his movements, he was also able to sink down and dodge this attack. Endless Forest, who had sunk lower, now waved his broom again to propel himself upward toward Lord Grim. And Lord Grim waved his myriad manifestations umbrella, turning it into a spear and casually parrying his attack. To the side, Boundless Sea's hands were moving, water rippling between them, and he suddenly thrust downward. The chi swirled in the water, its trajectory clear, and Endless Forest immediately swept his broom again to dodge. Happy's two players were toying with Endless Forest. It was now as though they had completely forgotten about Cold Seasons. Zhou Guangyi was once again depressed. When he had dodged downward earlier, he had also had some plan in mind. He thought that by sinking down, Happy's two would follow him. Zhang Wei's Endless Forest would only need to wait for a moment in the lower position before immediately being able to seize the upstream position. But who would have thought? As soon as he swam aside, those two didn't even look at him, instead starting to fight Endless Forest. Cold Seasons had escaped. But Zhou Guangyi couldn't just stand by and watch Zhang Wei be beaten down. His earlier little plan was too straightforward. In front of these two it was far from enough. Zhou Guangyi's Cold Seasons obediently came back to attack. But Yi Shu and Feng Rui, in this short moment of 2v1, had managed to once again seize the upstream position. When cold seasons returned, he was downstream with Zhang Wei's endless forest. Their position was downstream, their situation was also downstream. On the riverbank, Zhou Yuan and the others were worried about Zhang Wei and Zhou Guangyi as they fought happy. Wind-carving Summons Legion had taken up the task of blocking the opponents. But in the face of the long-range firepower of the launcher, the typical summon was already essentially dead by the time it reached close range. The Undead Knight was a little stronger, but because it was so slow and couldn't coordinate with anything else to block the opponent, it could easily be avoided and wasn't much use. Watching his summons being summoned and then blasted to death, Zhu Xiaoping felt his heart hurt. The death of a summon didn't hurt Wind Carving's health, but every summon used up mana. So in every battle, every summon had to be carefully calculated so that it served a useful purpose. It was like how other classes had to use their mana-consuming skills carefully, to cause damage, or disrupt rhythm, or thwart a target. No matter what it was, it had to serve a purpose. And now, although Wind Carving summons served the purpose of protecting them, they were used up rather too quickly. Zhu Xiaoping, judging from past battle experience, could tell that his usage pacing this match was a little too fast. They couldn't continue like this, or else he would run out of mana, and Wind Carving would become a useless person on the battlefield. "You guys go first, I'll cover you." Thus, Zhu Xiaoping resolutely sent this to the team chat. He had decided he need to spread out their formation and thoroughly tend to these three from happy. He was a summoner, so he could call forth many dear helpers. He should have this ability. To just avoid them and let his summons act as cannon fodder didn't seem wise. Zhu Xiaoping even felt that, judging from Dancing Rain's attack rhythm, the opponent was purposefully trying to waste all his summons. Alright, Zhou Yuan and Mo Chu Chen didn't doubt him. A summoner had the ability to take on 2 or even 3 people at once, because he was never fighting by himself. Directly facing against his opponents, Zhu Xiaoping could carefully control all of his summons, and they wouldn't be defeated so easily by his opponents. He summoned an Undead Knight, who lifted his shield, and Wind Carving himself closely followed along behind. This time, he wouldn't summon from afar. He wanted to directly control his summons, so under the protection of Undead Knight, he would approach closer to his opponents before calling forth a Summons Legion. Of course, the Undead Knight moved rather slowly, and it would be easy enough for the opponent to maintain distance. But even if that happened, Zhu Xiaoping would complete his mission of obstruction. At most he would be sacrificing one Undead Knight, a far cheaper price than all the summons he had lost earlier one after the other. Boom, boom. Cannon fire exploded relentlessly upon the Undead Knight's shield. Although the Undead Knight wobbled, his steps were still resolute. As Zhu Xiaoping predicted, the opponent wouldn't split apart just to kite Undead Knight. They didn't slow down as they ran forward. But this time, now that he himself was here, there was no way he was letting them go around him. 1-inch Ash waved his sword, and a ghostly aura flickered along the length of his blade. Was he about to lay down a ghost boundary? Zhu Xiaoping saw clearly and summoned a phantom cat not far from where 1-inch Ash was. Under the protection of the Undead Knight, Zhu Xiaoping wasn't afraid of being interrupted. The summoned phantom cat immediately rushed toward 1-inch Ash. Whether he was hit by an attack or tried to dodge, the casting of the ghost boundary would be interrupted. Dancing Rain went to attack the phantom cat, meaning that the attacks on this side lightened, and they could rush forward with their momentum. Controlling the summons truly made a difference. Zhu Xiaoping was extremely satisfied with his condition. He really felt pretty good today. How was he defeated by a rookie in the group arena? He didn't understand. Or maybe, today was that pretty girl's lucky day. Even Yu Feng had lost in a direct fight against her. Now that he thought about it, that pretty girl was Happy's 6th player right now. WuxiaWorldAudio.com What would happen if she came out to battle? Zhu Xiaoping felt that he had good control over the situation. Things were progressing as expected, and he even had the time to ponder other things. Phantom Cat's fast harassment prevented 1-inch Ash from laying down a ghost boundary. This sort of fast and small close-range attacker wasn't an easy opponent for the Launcher and Ghost Blade classes. Zhu Xiaoping seized the chance and controlled wind carving to summon more creatures, quickly creating an army. He didn't bother with demon flowers or other summons that weren't nimble. These summons would be limited in their usefulness in front of a Launcher and Ghost Blade. Right, Launcher and Ghost Blade. Launcher and Ghost Blade? Where'd the other person go? Where was Happy's cleric? Zhu Xiaoping suddenly discovered that Happy's cleric Little Cold Hands was nowhere to be found. Wind carving was hidden behind the undead knight this whole time, so even though he paid close attention to the situation at hand, his vision was limited. It wasn't until now that his army was formed that wind carving majestically walked forward, only to discover that one of his opponents was missing. The opponent's cleric escaped. Zhu Xiaoping immediately warned the others in the team chat. Escaped was really giving himself a lot of credit. In reality, he was just trying to cause a disruption, not trap them entirely. Attack. As Zhu Xiaoping directed his summons forward, he studied his surroundings, trying to find Little Cold Hands. And then, he found an entrance to the stone forest nearby. Had Little Cold Hands entered there? If he entered there, Zhu Xiaoping's mind spun. This was a map that everyone knew, and as a pro player, he could clearly visualize it in his mind. If he entered there, he would pass the spawn point. The spawn point, or in other words, the support zone. In Happy's limited match data, they had used this strategy before, letting their healer exit the battle, replacing him with an attacker. And the attacker that Happy could use as replacement was someone that no one, certainly not 100 Blossoms, would dare underestimate anymore. All this flashed through Zhu Xiaoping's mind, and he frantically sent another message. Healer went to player exchange area. Soft Mist might enter battle. Soft Mist entering battle? Right now. To do what? Seeing Zhu Xiaoping's message, the 100 Blossoms players weren't as alarmed as he was. They even sent this message to the public chat as mockery. Zhou Yuan and Mo Chu Chen had finally arrived, easily helping Zhang Wei and Zhou Guangyi to escape their predicament. Now that they had turned the situation around, they were prepared to bully Happy. To come fight, of course. Yi Shu replied in the chat. What use is a healer here? Behind Lord Grimm, the river banks were blocked by insurmountable walls, and the broken river became a waterfall plunging downward. Looking through this gap, one could see a beautiful expanse of scenery. But it was no use, for right here was the end of this world. End chapter.